Hey Twisters, so for today's video, let's break down the Western Conference Final between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars. We'll look at the matchup as it pertains to even strength offense, even strength defense. We'll look at goaltending and special teams as well. And throughout the video, I'll be bringing in some of your comments because we had a community poll. And so you all weighed in and left lots of great comments on why you're picking the certain team that you are. So we'll get to that. I'll start out with a quick recap though. The Golden Knights beat the Jets in 5 games. They lost the first, and then they won 4 straight, and then they beat the Oilers in 6. And a lot of people out there had favored the Oilers not just to win that series, but to possibly even contend for the Stanley Cup. Meanwhile, the Stars, they at one point trailed 2-1 in each of their series, right? So first against the Wild, then they won 3 straight to win that series in 6, and then they beat the Seattle Kraken in 7 games, and that was a fantastic series as well. And in the regular season series this year, Dallas won the only game that was decided in regulation. That was back in January, and then in the other 2 meetings, those were decided in shootouts. So pretty evenly matched for the most part as we got later into the season. So let's talk about offense. I primarily mean this in a 5-on-5 context. The Golden Knights have played 11 games. They have scored 31 of their goals at 5-on-5. That is especially deadly. And it was kind of a tale of 2 different series. In the first round, it was about these players kind of coming out of nowhere. I think of like Michael Amadio. I think of Brett Howden as well, and scoring some big goals. Chandler Stevenson had himself one hell of a series. Not necessarily the most high-profile players on the Golden Knights team, and that kind of supports what John is saying here with the depth of the Golden Knights. And so far, they have 11 players with 5 points over 11 games. But in the second round, it was all about Mark Stone and especially Jack Eichel. Granted, they played very well defensively. They played physically too. They forced turnovers, but really those players came alive, and so did Jonathan Marchessault. It was very important for him to sort of pick himself back up after a really lackluster finish to the season. So against the Oilers, he had 5 goals and 3 assists in those 6 games. So if those players can keep it rolling, then yes, they can especially be deadly, even though the Knights aren't necessarily known as a world beater on offense. On the Dallas side, they've played 13 games. They're averaging 3.62 goals per game. They've scored 29 of their goals in 5-on-5 in 13 games. So that's 2 fewer goals than the Knights in 2 more games played. They're only averaging 29.6 shots per game. The Knights are at 30.5. So neither team is necessarily controlling the zone on a consistent game-by-game basis. Although, I think that the Stars are more than capable of that. Roope Hintz is a huge reason as to why I just said that, because he's got 9 goals, 10 assists. You've got Joe Pavelski, just a great kind of compliment to a player like Hintz. He's got 8 goals, of course. He missed a lot of time, but in the second round, he was electric. And as Alltoads says right here, if they get Jason Robertson going, they are even more deadly. That could really carry them into a Stanley Cup Final and perhaps a championship. He only has 2 goals, Robertson does, but he has been in on their chances. He's still picking up points, so I wouldn't be overly concerned. The middle 6 has been contributing too. I mean, if that's been kind of one missing piece of the Dallas Stars over the past few years, it's been that the second and third lines haven't really been producing enough. They have a good balance of skills out there. They've got some speed. They've got some clutch scoring. I think of, Wyatt Johnston especially, Max Domi, Mason Marchment. They can get under opponent's skin. 11 players on that team have at least 6 points over those 13 games. So the depth on both sides is definitely there. And the defense, I'm surprised to see Thomas Harley with a goal and 7 assists so far. I didn't know he was known for that sort of offense. Heiskanen with 9 assists. He's a great puck mover, very responsible, bringing it out of the zone into the neutral zone. So when I compare the 2 offenses together, I know the Knights have been more efficient, but Dallas still has their fair share of weapons, so I think it's pretty much a push here. Now let's talk about defense, and to be honest with you guys, I don't watch this as closely as I do offense and special teams and that sort of thing. Not to mention, I didn't watch the Dallas Stars as much as I have other teams so far. I want to make that honest. I was especially rooting for the Kraken. They're my local team. So anyway, take my opinions here with a grain of salt. All right, so the Stars are averaging 3.08 goals against. That's total, 5-on-5, penalty kill, all that sort of thing. They've conceded 28 goals at 5-on-5 in 13 games. So that is just a little bit over 2 per game. That's not horrible by any means, but look at the Golden Knights. They've only conceded 15 goals 5-on-5. So right now, they've outscored their opponents at even strength 31-15. But let's get back to the Stars here. So in Game 7 against the Kraken, they executed perfectly defensively. I think that's a blueprint against any team, especially the Golden Knights, who thrive on generating chances off of turnovers in the other team's zone. And by that, I mean the Stars defense stood up the Kraken from getting into their zone. They did an incredible job of that. I mean, Seattle's got speed. Seattle is very effective working along the boards. And the Dallas Stars just said hell no to that. And you saw there, Jake Ottinger didn't have to make that many saves in Game 7. So I think for them, that's going to be very key. For the Knights, they can force all sorts of turnovers, right? Especially when teams are trying to come out of their zone. They always have somebody in the right position off the turnover to receive the pass to, one touch it over to somebody else right there in the slot and they score. It's been automatic for them pretty much ever since they came into existence in the NHL. Mark Stone so far has 17 takeaways and he's given the puck away just one time. So he's a linchpin for that system. But even players like Barbashev can get under your skin. Marchessault plays above his weight. He can be physical and pressure other teams out there. And for the Stars, they have their own weapons as well defensively. Heiskanen's still a very good defender. Pavelski from the forward group and even Hintz as well. So when it comes to defense, I think that systematically, the Knights have demonstrated this over the course of the playoffs better than the Dallas Stars have. But again, I think the Stars, at the very least, have a strong defense. Let's touch on goaltending. All right, so let's start with the Stars here, right? Jake Ottinger. He's had a couple of great seasons already in his young career. Although in these playoffs, teams have gotten the best of him at times. The Kraken were able to do that. There were times when he wasn't making key saves. He would make big saves in those games. But in terms of making saves to kind of preserve your team's momentum, he hasn't been there in the course of every single game. So his numbers aren't great so far. A .903 save percentage, granted a 2.75 goals against average and a shutout. But really, I think what's going to help him is that he's rested. He can be back on top of his game after a few days of rest. And so I think he can look stronger than he did perhaps in the Kraken series. And as for the Knights, well, it doesn't really matter who they start in goal. Somehow they seem to keep the puck out of the net. Adin Hill has only played 5 games so far, but so far he has a .934 save percentage and a 2.19 goals against average. I don't think he's been tested just enough, possibly work from behind the net to get him moving laterally. He is a pretty big goaltender out there, so that could be a strength for Dallas if they want to attack in that fashion. Hill, his numbers look great. I think a lot of that is a reflection of how well the Golden Knights defense has played, but even so, he showed up pretty big for them down the stretch. Now, Brossoit, he hasn't been skating, so I don't think he's going to play in this series, but despite his numbers, they're not particularly sexy. I still think that he was pretty good in that first round against his former club, the Winnipeg Jets. And I do want to point out this comment here from Steezy Trev, coming from a Knights fan. It's going to come down to defense and goaltending. While Dallas has better goaltending and Vegas has a better defense, I think that if Adin Hill can keep up to what he did against the Oilers, the Golden Knights defense being part of that to surrender fewer quality chances, then the Knights can win in 7. It could go either way. And I definitely agree with you there. All right, let's get to the special teams here. So we'll start with the Knights. On paper, it looks pretty bad. So their power play, 17.5%, and the penalty kill is only 60%. With the power play, don't forget in Game 5 against the Oilers, they took advantage of it, and they were able to generate a lot of momentum in that game and keep it up because of what they did on the power play. As for the penalty kill, it's at 60%. That's not just because of how they played against the Oilers. It was also because the Jets got the best of them. I will point out, though, the Knights probably have some confidence going into this series because you look at what they did in only surrendering 1 goal in that 5-minute major against the Oilers in Game 5. So special teams were the story there. The Knights, they can hang tough. They actually are a pretty disciplined team. I think that as long as they keep the number of penalties that they take at a reasonable level, they can still win games with how strong they are at 5-on-5. And as for the Stars, they can win games as a result of special teams. Their power play right now is clicking at 31.7%. They've got great weapons from top to bottom. Heiskanen to Pavelski, tipping shots in front of the net. Of course, you got Robertson and Hintz and other players out there as well. But yeah, this is a team that has consistently been one of the better power plays in the NHL over the course of the year. The penalty kill has been really good too. It's at 83.3%. So against that Golden Knights power play, I think that they can actually generate momentum by how they can kill penalties. So the special teams advantage easily goes to the Dallas Stars here. All right, now let's get to the community thoughts and my prediction here. Again, let me know in the comments below who are you picking, why are you picking it, right? Let me know your top performer for the series as well. All right, so we received 2.7 thousand votes. That's awesome. Thank you again, everybody. 58% of you have picked the Golden Knights to 42% for the Stars. Now let's read a few comments arguing the case for each team. Lonely Cake, a longtime viewer of this channel, says, get your broomsticks ready. The Stars are tired dead fish after 2 grinding series, right? Minnesota had asserted themselves physically. Seattle is just not an easy out with how they attack with their speed. The Knights are rolling with that high confidence Eichel-style souffle. Nuggets, Golden Knights in 4. Professor Scales, as a salty Oilers fan, Vegas in 6. I know how you feel there, buddy. I'm a Sharks fan. Their roster is perfect for playoff hockey. Top to bottom, they're deep and talented. They've got good goaltending from unexpected guys, but the biggest difference is their coach. Cassidy both avoided the Oilers' biggest advantages. They did a pretty good job limiting Draisaitl and McDavid, as well as taking advantage of their weaknesses, specifically their defense. I think that's a fair assessment, right? Cassidy, his system has really been something that the Knights have embraced and have executed to a T. Epic ZY says, very even series. Talent spread between the two and depth between the two as well. Exactly. We've been talking about that throughout this video. However, I think the difference will be defense, which I think favors Dallas, whereas I said it favors the Knights. And their special teams has been on fire. Absolutely. I can't dispute that. I think Stars in 6 or 7. I don't see this being a quick series. And lastly, let's go to Joshua Bailey here. Both teams are pretty even. Dallas has the edge across the board. Better defense, better goaltending, and are stacked deep with star players. I think this series goes 7 and comes down to Ottinger. If he plays up to his potential, Stars in 7. If he lets in a bunch of softies like he did against the Kraken, Vegas in 7, excuse me. Should be a great series and hopefully a clean one. Good luck, Vegas Golden Knights, go Stars. All right, great. Hey, thanks for the comments. I can't include all of them, otherwise this video would be like an hour. Anyway, I was breaking down who has the advantage in which categories, right? So I said it was a push on even strength offense. I personally think the Knights just systematically have the defensive edge. Goaltending goes to the Stars, and they definitely come away when it comes to the special teams matchup. They also have Peter DeBoer, right? He knows that Golden Knights team. A lot of players, except for pretty much Eichel among the big name players, are still on that roster. And DeBoer, in his first year with the team, does great things. With the Knights, they never got to the Stanley Cup with him. But, first season taking a Devils team that wasn't supposed to go anywhere, and they went to the Cup Final. Same thing with the Sharks. In that specific year, they weren't expected to go that far. They missed the playoffs the season before. So I think that on paper, there are many compelling cases to go for the Stars. The Knights, though, 31-15 is the difference in even strength. Even though their penalty kill isn't particularly good. I think that's one thing that keeps the Stars pushing this series very deeply. But again, it's the systematic defense, the way they force turnovers, the positioning of their players. And they just bury everything. It's automatic. And this is kind of coming from the bias of me with expect the worst and hope for the best. That's why I'm picking the Knights here. They have given me no reason to pick against them at 5-on-5, excuse me. Could special teams win the series for the Stars? Yes. But I think that's going to have to be a factor of, the Knights taking dumb penalties. I mean, Evander Kane was up in their grill and they didn't back down, They were smart. So anyway, I'm going to pick the Golden Knights to win in 7. In the other series, I picked the Hurricanes over the Panthers in 6. Here, I'll pick the Knights in 7. I've been 50% with my playoff predictions so far, first round and second round. So Hurricanes and Knights in the final. One of those will be right, and it's going to be the Hurricanes. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Watch my Stanley Cup Champions Rankings video if you haven't already. Just see the pinned comment down below. Stick around for more content throughout the rest of the NHL playoffs and also in the offseason. Thanks so much, guys. Leave a thumbs up. That will help the channel quite a bit. And I hope to see you around for more great conversations around the Stanley Cup playoffs. Once again, I'm Nick. I'll catch you Twisters later. Ciao.